starting our webinar on researching technology aids using Ability 411. And as I mentioned, my name is Janet McLean, and I work here with Family Caregivers of BC in Victoria. And joining me tonight is Nikki Anderson, who works with CanAssist at the University of Victoria, and Nikki's going to be telling us about Ability 411. Just a little bit of information about Family Caregivers of BC. So if you live in British Columbia, our services are available to you 100%. We are dedicated to the well-being and support of family caregivers, and all of our services are free across the province. We have been around for 30 years, Family Caregivers of BC. We were the first provincial organization of its kind in Canada. There are now two others, one in Alberta, one in Nova Scotia, and one that's coming on board in Ontario. And I think Quebec has a similar organization, not quite the same, but similar. In British Columbia, we've been serving the whole province since 2010, and in the last 6 years with Ministry of Health funding, in order to provide education like this across the whole province, and as well our caregiver support line. So we really feel privileged to have an organization like this dedicated to family and friend unpaid caregivers. It's such an important part of our healthcare system. What we do, this is a bit of a busy slide. All kinds of presenters that come to Family Caregivers of BC and do these webinars for us. It is in no way an endorsement of a product or an opinion. But we're really trying to make sure that we are providing information for caregivers. We think it's their caregivers' rights to understand what is available to them, and so we're supporting inquiry processes. And so now I get to introduce Nikki. And Nikki, as you can see on your screen, hopefully if you've got your webcam and your computer working, Nikki is the Product Development Coordinator at CanAssist at the University of Victoria. And in this role, Nikki helps the team turn ideas into products and services that can help patients and their caregivers. And I was chatting with Nikki a little bit before we started tonight, and she's got a fascinating background in sort of helping people with diversity, helping, recognize people with diverse needs. So I think she probably couldn't have ended up in a better place than CanAssist. And if you aren't familiar with CanAssist, Nikki's going to be telling us about them tonight, but you can hop on their website at CanAssist. We're very lucky that they're located here right in Victoria and do amazing work in all kinds of areas. So I know that you're going to really enjoy the webinar tonight. We also had, I just want to mention that we had an article about Ability 411 in the spring edition of our newsletter. And so, you're welcome to, all of our past issues of our newsletters are on our website. It's a great article. It was written by one of the team at CanAssist, so it gives you kind of a broader perspective. And so I think with this, I'm going to change our layout now to Nikki's presentation. And I'm going to be moving us through the presentation. So over to you, Nikki.
Great. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction.
Great.
Yes, so my name is Nikki. I'm with CanAssist at the University of Victoria, and we're going to be talking about researching helpful technology aids just generally, and I'm going to introduce you to Ability 411. If you haven't heard about it or you haven't seen the article, we're going to go over that as well.
All right.
One thing that we like to do at CanAssist is begin by acknowledging the Lekwungen-speaking peoples upon whose traditional territory the university stands, where we do our work, and that extends to the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. So that's just something we do to show respect, and I'm sure on the lands that you're on, I would encourage you to take a look at some of the history there as well. Can you give me the next slide?
Annie just asked, she reminded me, will we be able to access the slides? I will make a PDF of the slides and they will be posted with the webinar recording on our website. So thanks for asking that, Annie.
Perfect. Okay, so a little bit of background on CanAssist, just to give you a bit of a story time here. So we're based at the University of Victoria. I like to begin with where CanAssist started because we're celebrating 20 years this year. And that's sort of 20 years in 2020 is what the theme we're going for it.
Wow.
And a lot of people are not familiar with us, which is why we're getting out and doing things like this.
Yeah.
So the story of CanAssist, the founder was working at the University of Victoria. He was introduced to the disability community through his daughter, who was diagnosed with Angelman syndrome. So complex condition, and she was in and out of the hospital. While they were at the hospital, he was introduced to a boy who had a near drowning incident. He could not see, he could not speak, and he only had a small range of motion in his finger. But there was still a lot of quality of life there because he loved music. The downside here is that he wasn't able to control his own music because this was 1999, so you're thinking like Walkman, big chunky buttons. So first CanAssist technology was a really simple one. It was an accessible button that he could press to turn the music on and off.
Wow.
So naturally everybody in the hospital saw something like that and was like, oh, I've got somebody else you can meet. And it grew and grew, and he would return to the University of Victoria to recruit other folks, other faculty, students, and it just kept growing. So by the time around 2008, the University of Victoria really started to take notice of what's going on with CanAssist, and so now we're sort of treated like a department within UVic. So we're based there, and we have this great connection with the university. Today's team, we have 25 or so full-time staff. We also get co-op students from the university, which is a fantastic relationship. We also get the opportunity to engage with a lot of the researchers that are happening in the work that they're doing. I know they're currently working on some things with assistive technology, and we've got the Institute on Aging there, and we have 2 research fellows right now working on projects and helping us with some of ours. As far as we know, we're unique to North America in this sort of manner in how we work and our relationship with the University of Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could go take us to the next slide, Janet.
I will.
I appreciate you doing the play-by-play. You're going to be a fast typer. Right, so a little bit of how we're funded, because this explains, how we're able to do what we're doing. UVic provides us about, it offsets our operating costs by about 25%.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that, Maureen. I'm going to move the mic here. Yeah, hopefully that.
So that means our beautiful office space at the University of Victoria, the utilities, the janitorial services, all of this is provided in kind from the University of Victoria, which really helps us. The rest of our budget, however, where most of the technologies are funded through, comes from a variety of sources, including philanthropic donations, government grants, and fee-for-service agreements. So some of our coolest technologies come through philanthropy because they're really a lot of work for something that's going to make a big difference. So just for the purpose of story time, I'm telling you a little bit about where CanAssist is at. The picture you see in the upper right corner, if you can see it, I'll describe it if you don't. We've got a display of iTouches, a big case with a dark screen iPad, and then 4 touch switches brightly numbered 1 through 4. So this is actually a music therapy kit. The big box on the right is, it's got a speaker in there, it's got this iPad that can be the conductor, and it's got charging ports for all the devices. The devices are running an app that we made called Waveband, and it's a motion instrument, so as the person moves any part of their body with the iTouch attached to it, it plays a scale of any instrument. So we had this at an event recently, and there was one woman was just totally in love with it, and she was like, oh, it'd be so cool if it could play trumpet. I used to play trumpet. So from the conductor iPad, I set it to trumpet just to really, show exactly what it can do. The touch switches can be programmed to do a number of things. We kind of programmed them to do drum sounds. So these devices have been sent out to 32 of the child development centers across the province. That's with funding through the Ministry of Child and Family Development. So they're doing all sorts of neat things with those right now, including, my understanding is that there is a music therapist in Terrace, BC, who's running music therapy.
So what are the touch pads, and then and then there's the iPad, and
then you can see those are actually the cases in the back.
Okay.
So the idea that maybe physically seeing the technology might be a barrier for some people. So having it in that sort of sleeve, you can also just attach it to an arm or a leg wherever the movement is, and then just even the slightest motion can play the full scale because there's an adjustable sensitivity. So we really try and design something that would work for everyone.
So those are iPhones as well?
Yeah, so it actually, if you would like to test out the app, it's free on for iDevices. So it's not on Android yet, but it's called Waveband, one word. Multiple layers of puns here, right? You're waving, it's a band, you could attach it as a band, you know. So that's one example of some of the things we've done, and there's a lot of...
and it's free?
Waveband is free, yes.
Okay.
And we're experimenting with trying to see if we can get the kit out there more, because there's certainly an interest for different facilities that are running programs to get seniors active. A lot of music therapy is meant to be just listening and not very participatory.
Yeah.
And really, if you don't have like the most charismatic presenter, it's hard to get people to really participate.
Right.
So this one is kind of interesting. Like when you put the touch switch down, you're not really asking anyone to do too much. It's not embarrassing, right? It's just touching the button.
Right.
And then once they sort of clue in, like, oh, that's me making a cymbal sound. Okay, I'm going to test that out a bit. So it really brings out the playful attitude with most people.
Oh, that's cool.
The knife that you're seeing in the middle, that's an example of our fee-for-service work. So that one was made for a client, I think through WorkSafe BC. So butcher with repetitive strain injury, so constantly sort of chopping through bone. And so what we did there was take a mold of his hand and mount that on top of the knife. So that means higher surface area. You don't have to have as much grip strength, and you're able to take the force from the arm instead of from the wrist. So we do work on a number of contracts like that to help people get back to work in those cases, and it's a really good relationship. And then we do have these great opportunities through the public sector funding. So both the music therapy kit and what you're seeing at the bottom is the dog ball launcher. Were sort of initially developed through philanthropy, and then once we had a really good prototype, and we were able to take this to the Ministry of Child and Family Development and put them out on a broader scale. So the dog ball launcher, really great device. It whips a ball at the touch of a button. So we work a lot with accessibility switches. They're really just big, colorful buttons. And so in this case, the girl in the chair has got, I think it's a big green button on her lap. She's able to touch that button, and that sends the ball flying for the dog. Or people are using them in a lot of different ways in gym classes and with siblings, and there's all kinds of cool things out there. Ideally, the secondary part is that the dog is clever enough to bring the ball back and put it in the bucket. But sure. I don't know. I need to see a really good dog to put that together. All right. And so I speak a lot about CanAssist Technologies, and I've sort of covered, we do work across the disability spectrum and the age spectrum. So we will build for those workplace injuries, physical barriers, mental health issues, cognitive impairments, the intersections of these. And the heart and soul of CanAssist has historically been developing a custom technology for one individual. So incredibly client-focused. And that's the story behind the one that you're seeing here. This is the hitch lift. This was, again, something that started out of one person's request, and that was for a way to help them get their spouse's mobility aid in and out of the vehicle. And in this case, there was a couple things, like you don't want to buy a new vehicle. You don't want to get a full platform lift installed in the vehicle. It's usually something like you've got a heavy-duty walker or a lightweight scooter, and you just want to get it in and out. And whether it's the user of the mobility aid themselves, or really often it's the spouse or family member, it's a heavy item to move back and forth all day. And what we were finding was that for a lot of the clients who came to this with this, they weren't going out as much in the community because of it. And one of the first clients who had it, they went out 14 times in the first week that they had it, which
Wow.
is impressive for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it really shows that the impact of something like that. So the difference with what we developed here, the hitch lift, is that instead of being a full platform lift that mounts into the vehicle and all this, it works more like a bike rack. So you're putting the hitch on the vehicle. That's the only modification you have to make. So it's actually bringing up the value of the car, as opposed to bolting in lifts, which can bring the value down. And thus it's hitch mounted like a bike rack, and it charges via the cigarette lighter. So no wiring either, and it's just the touch of a button, and it takes the mobility aid up and down.
Wow.
There's a really great video on it that was made with one of our clients locally, who's an actual user of it, which is unique for these kind of videos, because usually when it's made by a private company, they pick somebody who's like 50 with white hair, and
Right,
you know,
right,
but,
not the real user.
Yeah, so she's really using it throughout the whole video, and she's a really good sport for it. So the reason why I have this slide specifically dedicated to the hitch lift is to focus on this one aspect of CanAssist Technologies, which is focusing on innovation and unmet community needs. So even though the private sector was clearly aware that people needed to get mobility aids in and out of vehicles, it was an unmet need because they'd sort of over-designed the whole thing.
Right, right.
The regular cost of these lifts was in the thousands, and so we're actually experimenting with seeing if we can sell the hitch lift, which is the first time we've ever done this.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, we have the different channels, so downloading the apps can be free, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Share them out with a lot of people, but typically it's that funding from philanthropy or from government grants that pays for the engineers and the materials, so the clients are actually receiving the technology for free.
Mm-hmm.
The downside with the hitch lift is that so much of our funding is based on geography. So if somebody says, I just really want it and I'm in Calgary, we don't have any options to get that to them until now. So we're big on this idea of unmet needs, which is a lot where my role comes in. So product development coordinator, long title.
Right.
A big chunk of what I do is making sure that we're not designing something that already exists.
Right.
So looking at what's already out there, which is why I start to become a nerd about all these things that are already out there.
So is there, are there comparable organizations anywhere else in Canada?
There are some great organizations that are using volunteer labor.
Mm.
So there's some downsides with the volunteer labor because it's dependent on usually one or two people and the materials that they can get. That being said, for a lot of projects, there's some great groups. I'm thinking Tetra Society is across North America. They use volunteer labor. I see BCITS there. Yes, they're great. They are, I think one of my favorite things from BCITS is the TIL program, Technology for Independent Living. So they actually will help you have more environmental control.
Mm-hmm.
Where we become different is that they have a bit more of a focus on technologies that you can buy and help setting them up with people, whereas we're really hands-off the second it's something you can buy. We focus on where there isn't something. The other one I'm thinking is Neil Squire, Makers Making Change. They're sort of a similar one. They've got like a bunch of...
Neil Squire?
Yeah, and so they're called Makers Making Change, and I think they've got a great group of people who've got like maybe a bit more electrical skills, 3D printers, and they're working on some cool technologies there. There's a lot of academic level groups that are working on the intersection of aging and technology. I'm thinking of AgeWell, that goes across a lot of the major universities, and Aging 2.0, which is a global group actually. So there's definitely a whole group that are interested in these things, and we're focused on collaboration. So it's really exciting to get involved with these guys at the intersection.
Very cool. All right.
Oh, this is a winner. So I know some people are joining by phone, so I'll describe the picture on this slide. This is Charles. Charles is a guitar player. He's sitting down with a guitar, and the guitar has a device on it. This is because Charles had a stroke. He was an avid guitar player for 25 years, and then he was no longer able to use his right arm. So he was still able to use the left to do the chords, but he would not be able to do the strumming. So what we've attached to his guitar in this case is a pedal power strummer. So it's a bass drum pedal, and when he taps his foot down, it's using sort of the same cable that you would use for a bike when you access the brakes, and that brings a pick down and up, down and up. And actually we've been playing with this to come up with different ways we could use it, and we have made more of these. It's a really great example of customized solutions because, again, if a business wanted to come along and make this, it's a very unique market. Mm-hmm. We're talking about folks that are not able to have use of both hands or arms, or, you know, in cases where they don't have a left arm, or, and then they have to be interested in playing guitar on top of all that. And it's hard because especially that takes a lot of coordination. Right. I'm really excited. We had a donor come and fund the development of, I think, 10 of these recently. Wow. And so we were able to go through our wait list and then go out and say, hey, who else wants one? And one of them went to an island-based group where my understanding is they're doing little concerts now. Oh, really cool. That's amazing. Really cool. Wow. So the gift that keeps on giving, the guitar strummer. Yeah, very cool. And then, so on the other end of our custom stuff, we have our broad impact technologies. So in this picture, we've got a cutting board. I almost brought this cutting board. I really hope somebody here sees this cutting board and thinks of somebody they know, because I think we actually still have some looking for homes right now. So this is the captive knife cutting board, and the knife actually moves along the track. So this would again work for somebody like Charles, because you can completely chop and slice with this knife with only one hand. So you would mount, you know, your green pepper on the little spikes there, and you'd be able to move the knife over and chop with it. You can also take the knife off, wash it in the dishwasher, and that entire process still only takes one hand, which is nice. Wow. There are some similar products out here that if you've seen the combination cutting board from Parsons ADL, that one has a pivot in the corner, and ultimately, when you look at it, you'll realize if you stick a cucumber on those spikes and you've got the pivoted corner, you're going to cut the cucumber into this weird, like, pie shape. Mm-hmm. So it's not really how you cut, right? So that was what brought this one about. And why this comes in with broad impact technologies is because we found so many users for this. So this ended up being people with arthritis, people with Parkinson's, people with low vision. There were so many applications for this cutting board. I also like to mention that I'm allowed to use that image on the far right because that's my grandma. Aww, that's so yeah, and actually that was a trade show that I was at, and she came to visit, and she tested out the cutting board, loved it, and she has one now. She's a big fan. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely great. And so we also had a funder help us with developing 40 of those recently. So if you know anyone who would like one, okay. They are looking for homes. And and that is not geographically restricted either. So to our friends in Ontario, I think we have already shipped one to Ontario. The way our process works is there's a form on our website, the technology request form. Okay. We're always accepting technology requests. They are... Oh, what did I do? Okay, just a minute. Didn't mean to do that. Maybe you can bring it back to life. Recently shared. Oh, that's it. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. You can bump back. I just got overzealous. Oh, right where we left off. Right. So this technology request form is on the website, and we're always accepting them. It's our requests are relative to the funding we have, and some of that is geographically restricted. But still, I would encourage you, if you're interested in a really custom solution, that form is there. And it's quite straightforward. It's a 2-pager, and there's just a big blank space for you to write your story about what you're looking for. And then the other big part is that we do help you to find if something does exist. Right. Which there's a better source for that, which is Ability 411. Okay. We'll yeah, awesome. Next slide. This is, again, our dog ball launcher. And CanAssist seeks to not to compete, but instead collaborate. And that speaks to me with this one because we actually did buy a commercially available dog ball launcher. You can go out and buy that exact thing. I think it's like $65. Where we made it different was adding in that accessibility switch. which ended up making all the difference, because without it, these kids who are using it wouldn't actually be able to use it. The controller is too complicated. And also it's about the participation. Even if the thing was fully automated, then you're only watching, you're not actually getting to control the environment. So that's a big piece of that as well. And this brings us to CanStayHome, which is my bread and butter, my day-to-day. So this is our current funding from the BC Ministry of Health. So right now we're working with, the theme is technologies to help support seniors to stay independent in their homes for longer, whatever that may be. And that's a tall order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is our third round of funding with the BC Ministry of Health, so I can comment on a couple of the ones we've already had and some of the ones that are coming up. And one of these is also the Service with Ability 411. So on the far left, we have the caregiver intercom, and this is one that we're working on right now and sort of testing it out. So again, if you're in BC and you're interested in this, we're actually going to be looking for folks to test it. And it's a really good caregiver device. And I like to say it in the context of, if you have somebody in your home and you have no other way of contacting them, and say you're at work or somewhere else, you call them and they don't pick up the first time. And then you call them back and they don't pick up the second time. And then you start to worry, are they out? What could this be? Maybe she doesn't hear when the phone goes off. So many different things. Call again. Or you call and the line is busy and you wonder, is she talking to someone or is the phone off the hook? There's a whole spiral of worries that come out of this. And ultimately, if you only have a landline and that's the only means of contact, then sort of your next best bet is to call, the neighbor, if you have a great neighbor. But there isn't some sort of in-between solution. So that's where we honed in. The caregiver intercom sits between the phone and the landline service, so that when a caregiver is calling in, the box has caller ID, and it would say, oh, it's Janet. Janet's calling in. Janet is an okay phone number. And then you would be able to put in a code so that it's nice and secure. And then from there, you would be able to speak directly out of the box to the client. So it requires nothing on their end. It's within the control of the caregiver. It would basically be like automatic speakerphone.
Mm-hmm.
And
where does it sit? So it's that what you see there in the left hand?
Yeah.
And it sits between the phone and what?
And basically the wall service.
Okay.
And actually, a Lifeline works on a similar fashion if you're using a Lifeline system that's landline based, and it works with landline or with Lifeline, so you can have both as well, which is sort of great because it means that your person in the home can always easily contact out using the Lifeline service, but your caregiver can also easily contact in using the intercom, and that was a big part of what was missing.
So it automatically would
so once you put your code in, you would automatically get to have a speakerphone conversation with your person.
Okay.
And the cool thing there is that, again, it overrides if the phone is left off the hook. So if you called and the line was busy, you could call back and say, Mom, you left the phone off the hook. Oh, yeah, you're right. So many different applications in that sense. And
oh, okay. Tracy's got, maybe it's a workaround. Ooh, she recently installed 2 cameras in her home so she can see her mom when she's at work. And then she can speak to her too because she leaves the phone off the hook. I can see her through my phone.
Right. That is a fantastic solution. I love that. I was actually talking to one of my sort of work contacts, somebody I found really inspiring, Ron Bellino. He's with AgeWell as the voice of the caregiver, and he did this whole piece on how he raised coral and exotic fish, and he had this whole setup for taking care of them from work. So when he was a caregiver for his parents, he used a similar system to take care of them from his home, sort of using the auto answer feature on Skype, which is a simple solution because a lot of the camera solutions are associated with a monthly fee, and I'm really excited that Tracy elaborated to say on sale at Canadian Tire.
So,
That's the dream.
Yeah. So she's got 2 cameras that she can see through her cell phone, I'm guessing. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's a crafty caregiver solution.
That's really great. Yeah, excellent. Great app.
Just go back to that one.
Oh,
I've got
sorry.
a couple more.
Yeah.
The one in the middle, very, very popular device that we did a while back with CanStayHome funding. So this is the wandering redirect system. So imagine in this case you've got a client who has nighttime wandering. It's him and his wife live in their home, early stage dementia, and having difficulty with sort of distinguishing AMs and PMs.
Mm-hmm.
So regularly has coffee with his buddies at 10 a.m., but instead he's getting dressed and trying to walk out the door at 9:30 p.m. And so, of course, causing a lot of worry to his wife, who's sleeping with one eye open and making sure he's not leaving the house. So this device would be mounted near the door, and it's a really non-invasive intervention. As he approaches it, it's got a motion detector, so it would say he's coming towards the door, and that message would pop up. So a big stop sign and a message saying, it's nighttime, go back to bed. Where it gets a little more cool is that you can also have it to, right after that message, play a video. So a video of a caregiver saying, hey Dad, it's nighttime, if you've got, if there's an emergency, you can give me a call, or so many different ways. And for that client at that time, that was all he needed to sort of, and go back to bed. So not a long-term solution, but definitely it's that part of extending that time at home, especially when it was just one little thing like that. Mm-hmm. My solution for crafty caregivers like Tracy, there are actually motion-activated tablets. They're not for sale for this purpose, so you wouldn't really see them out in sort of like the Alzheimer's store or something like that. Instead, they're for sale sort of for private businesses. So your idea would be that you'd be walking up to the rack to look at a display, and then you would see a commercial for the product. But you can program any video you want in there, so you could use it for this exact purpose. Or if you were just looking for the audio solution, there are so many, the trademark Halloween Howler, motion detected, and you're supposed to be able to record like a scream or something on there, but you can record anything on there.
Right.
Yeah, so if you've got a nice outlet by the door, it's a great solution. And the one on the far right, a really exciting technology. This is the one I was telling you about before, Janet. This is CanConnect. So a couple of years ago, I actually got to meet, I guess it was just over a year ago, I met the original CanConnect user. So CanConnect, we actually developed this ages ago for a local woman in Victoria whose mom was in a care facility in Tennessee, somewhere southern United States, and it's warm. And she had her phone taken away from her for making unnecessary 911 calls.
Okay.
And she had children dispersed across the globe, and they didn't really have a way to get in contact with her. So CanConnect is a super simplified video calling for people who don't do technology. So these are seniors who may have never had a computer or a tablet, and it's not something that they're likely to learn, but definitely would have a lot to benefit from video calling. So this would permanently display a gallery of faces, and you just touch the face and it makes the call. So you don't have to worry with menus or passwords or anything else. It's a single-purpose device like a phone. It would require Wi-Fi, which is again where, if you don't have Wi-Fi, the caregiver intercom fits really nicely. If you're willing to have Wi-Fi, CanConnect fits really nicely. We really honed in on whether the use of a phone is a key indicator of whether or not somebody can continue living at home.
Right.
So there's definitely phone solutions. There's some great ones out there depending on whatever sort of challenge you're trying to tackle. And so the story with this first version 1 of CanConnect, it was built on top of Skype, so it was really a simple skin for Skype. And Skype was bought by Microsoft in 2014, and that ended all support for CanConnect. So again, this was a free device, and everything changed because it was no longer available, and we had people contacting us saying, I have no way of contacting my loved one anymore. Right. And that need hasn't gone away. So now we're leveraging some of our CanStayHome money to focus on this and own the service, start to finish. So instead of trying to build it on top of, I've heard people say, well, FaceTime's good, or Facebook video calling, Google Duo, like there's so many other video calling. Right. But in case the same thing happens, we're going to own the service start to finish. And that also means we can make it, this is the exciting part, secure for use with the health authorities. So if they wanted to use it to check up on somebody regularly, it would be a really good option. And again, this would be a single-purpose device, so brought into the home, only doing one thing. And for everybody else, it would be an app on their phone, which seems to be sort of a good fit. And so that is something that we're working on right now, and it's very likely that we're going to be looking for testers in the near future.
Wow. Yeah, so, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
As was mentioned, as Nikki mentioned at the beginning, contact her if you, like, is there a place they can contact you if they are interested in participating or being involved in any of these?
I have my email on the last slide.
Okay.
It's also on the website. I'm under operations and support. My email is CanAssist ProDev, so product development, but only the first two words, at uvic.ca.
Okay.
And yeah, especially if you're interested in testing, it's one of those things that we're always kind of looking for. We're not formally recruiting for the Intercom or for CanConnect, but it's something that is going to be coming out in the near future, and I'm definitely going to be sending Janet an email.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Definitely something we're excited about right now. Okay.
Exciting to be involved in something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's advance to the next slide.
Oh, yes. And so this is where Ability 411 comes in, which is, I hope for everyone on the call, this ends up being a resource you can put in your pocket and use if you're feeling inspired to think of any major challenges that you're facing, and really thinking about ways that technology could come in to support you. I mean, that's the purpose of technology, as much as sometimes we find it frustrating. It's meant to be helpful. Sometimes it's just weeding through all of what's out there. And historically, we have done this at CanAssist. So if somebody comes in saying, I'm looking for, my most common is, I'm looking for a jar opener for somebody with arthritis. Most common thing. Why don't you make a jar opener? And there are so many amazing jar openers, including the Robo Twist, which is available at Canadian Tire, which I think I have later.
I have that video.
That's the video. Yeah. Okay. So we don't make those because they already exist. In which, when somebody comes to us with a request, it's on the request, the community request form saying, have you searched for a market solution? And you can say yes or no. And then it says, do you want us to search for a market solution for you? In which then we go out and try and see if something's out there. So historically, it just, whoever submits the form gets the information back, and if somebody submits a form 3 months later, we end up doing all the research again because there was just no way to save it or to share it. And so many people are asking about the exact same things, and they're out there, and there's definitely a gap for us in Canada as well, because so many of the really cool solutions are available in the UK or the US, and they're not even really properly advertised here, so you wouldn't know if they're available. Right. So again, all these things sort of play in, and then the key part is that it's use of caregiver time, right? The time it takes to actually research the solution, the time it takes to actually find out what's out there, and that's not really an option for everybody. Same with the health sector employees. So many times where they can see, I think something exists, I don't know what it is, but I've got a crazy caseload and I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And so that entire option sort of falls by the wayside.
Right.
So this is where we come in with Ability 411. What if we had a channel to deliver that information back to people? So Ability 411 allows seniors and their caregivers the opportunity to ask questions and get answers about assistive technology. And that, again, is a really good thing, because what seems to be missing on the internet is a real good connection to people, particularly on resource sites. People fill out blogs, but you often don't have an opportunity to contribute back outside the comment section. Right. So we have this form on the website that I'll show you where you're able to just put in a question, and sometimes we have no idea about what the solution would even be. It's really just we get presented with a problem, and that's completely fine. We work in collaboration with the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapists, so all the answers that we research, we work with them on that.
Right.
So either they're checking my work or adding their thoughts. Sometimes I go straight to them and be like, is this something we can even like begin talking about, or does it need a formal assessment? And so the idea is that we're trying to bring in this unbiased information. You know, here are a few things you might want to look at. You know, they might not be perfect for you, but like, you know, this is a starting point.
Right.
And so the secondary effect there is that because it is a BC-focused service, we know that what the product is available to them.
Mm-hmm.
So when things come back, you can actually pick which community you're in. So if they're in Sydney, we can say, you know, it's available at the Home Depot, and like it's available at this Home Depot.
Yeah, right.
Or even for the more remote communities where it's harder to say you've got a medical equipment store that can get this to you. At least we can come up with something like, this is available on Amazon and they will ship to you.
Right.
So
yeah, great.
Something. So many options out there, but again, like it's a gap in time, it's a gap in knowledge. There's constantly new things coming out, and it's hard enough for me to keep on top of that, and that's my full-time job.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we can go to the next one. I think I have some examples of questions here. Right, okay, I like this one. So example cases, Pamela has difficulty navigating the tiny buttons of her blouses and shirts due to arthritis. She didn't think anything existed that could fix this relatively simple problem. Really common. You have a problem, and you have no idea if there even is a solution or what it would look like. Right. And then if you click again, yes, the reveal.
Wow.
This is a $16 button aid hook from Amazon. It's available from some other ones too. So
wow, look at that.
Like exactly what would fit here. I mean, theoretically, she could still have some problems with that, or it might not be a perfect fit, but as a $16 aid that I would say a lot of people aren't aware of that exists. So that's sort of an idea for the service. It's not all about big, heavy things. A lot of it is just simple, day-to-day, like kitchen gadgets.
Yeah.
Just different sort of things you can put in, because we're talking about restoring some independence, which takes some of the effort off of the caregiver and definitely gives a really good sense of accomplishment to the people who are using the technology.
Yeah, I'll have to remember that one.
Here's another good one. Oh, right. This is where I get into jars. So Bernice has trouble opening jars and cans due to her reduced grip strength, and she knows of other solutions but doesn't know what would work for her. So usually this is where people come in and say, oh, I tried, the different grips, and I tried this one, and they're all totally fair. They're all different versions of here's a different way to grip the jar, which is why we came up with this other one, which, Janet, you actually have the video up?
I do.
I really like this video, which is why I have to, we have a chance for it. Okay.
Bear with us here, folks.
Oh, you got it ready.
You have this.
Here we go with the robo twist.
How did you open tough jar lids? Do you try this one?
Oh.
Or this one?
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Or how about this one? Honey?
Where is the volume?
Oh, you got it on the bottom right.
Okay.
There is. Introducing Robo Twist, the robotic jar opener that easily twists off even the toughest lid.
Oh, you got it.
Just set it
Sorry,
down,
guys.
press the button, and watch it work. First, the Robo Strong Vise locks down tight. Then the powerful twisting action unscrews the lid. Even the toughest stuck jars don't stand a chance. Robo Twist is ideal for seniors and arthritis sufferers. But let's face it, even the strongest of us sometimes meet our match. Robo Twist has the muscle you need.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's no job it can't tackle. That fat jar of gravy?
Okay, we can stop. I don't want to look like an infomercial.
Right.
Robo Twist.
Pretty interesting, though.
Yeah, and actually, the folks that make this One Touch, they have a range of other products.
Mm-hmm.
Robo Twist, I think, is probably their biggest success. So it's everywhere. But I'm hoping that we get more different ones out there, including probably my favorite ability for one question came in really recently. That was for a 95-year-old to open her own wine bottle.
Aw.
Right?
That'll be me.
Just wants to have a glass of wine, and so
Right.
was actually calling her caregiver to come over and open the bottle of wine at night.
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
Wow. And the RoboTwist works on that?
No, actually, even better, we found this cool, it's like a sleeve that you just put on the top, automatic corkscrew, pops it out. So all you do is press a button, put it down, press the button. So again, no grip strength. And it was $20 at Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a real winner. I mean, there were some other solutions on there, but that was my favorite. Again, we try and give a balanced option, so where possible, can we give 2 or 3 solutions? We're not trying to be an advertisement for other places.
Sure.
It's more about being unbiased. And again, that's great with working with CAOT on that, because they also have a really cool sort of perspective on technology, and what I think they also really bring, I can be a technology nerd, but they have all these ideas about sort of just behavioral and practices that you can change. So I was talking about a client who had told me about how she had a laundry machine in her basement, and it was too heavy to bring the laundry basket, so she had been dragging it down the stairs one step at a time. And so I was talking about something that would have been like a lift system with a cable so she could take the, just something way over the top, right? And then one of the OTs was like, yeah, we usually just tell people stuff it in a pillowcase and chuck it downstairs. I was like, wow, that's a really simple solution. She was like, yeah, and then it's all in the pillowcase too, so you can wash it like that. And,
right.
Oh, that's a lot more simple.
There you go. There you go.
So some of the solutions that are on here are not even necessarily tech related.
Yeah.
They end up just being, here's a really cool article on 5 things you can do to. One of the articles is on people who bend over to pick up their pet food bowls.
Right.
Really common. People caring for cats and dogs where the bowls are on the floor. And actually that action of bending over, really common, blood rushes to the head and somebody feels faint. Not everybody can even bend over comfortably. And so we found some cool tech solutions. But one of the articles suggested at Easter, get one of those big handled Easter baskets and put the bowl in that, because then you don't have to bend as far. You can just get the handle.
Sure.
Great.
Wow, that is cool. Wow, awesome. Yep. When there's a will, there's a way.
I know. There's some really cool things out there.
Pretty amazing.
Okay, this is a great one. Gary is interested in smart home technology. He doesn't really know what a smart home is, but he's interested to learn more. So we curated a really cool article that was about sort of the basics of smart homes and what they can do for you. So I had this slide when I was up in Sydney talking to a group there, and I asked the audience who has a smart home. And it was the Probus Club, so they're retirees, and not a single hand went up, and which I knew was wrong because my grandpa was in the audience, and I said, Grandpa, I installed your Google Home for you. You have a smart home. And he's in the audience saying, is that what it is? And that's it.
Sure. Yeah.
You just don't know.
No.
So ways that I have seen my grandparents using their Google Home, they got comfortable with it almost instantly for playing the radio. So they're both, my grandpa's from the Isle of Man, my grandma's from the UK, and they were able to listen to local radio from the UK, streamed over the internet.
Wow.
So my grandpa was like, clear signal, how did that, and it's internet radio, right? But it's in a nice format. A lot of sort of tech seniors have told me that they love having the smartphone technology or the smart home technology because it's voice recognition.
Right.
It's so intuitive that you can just, once you know that first initial prompt, that whatever comes after, the worst thing you get is that they can't do it for you.
Right.
So that was sort of how they initially kicked off with getting used to Google Home, was just things to do with music.
Right.
A really easy format.
Yeah. How cool.
Yeah, so, and then there's all sorts of additional things. So when we talked about BCITS earlier, they have some interesting applications for smart home technology for environmental control. So things like turning on the light bulbs and turning off outlets. There's a whole range that you can get into this as a caregiver. I've seen some really geeky caregivers who are almost semi-programming these things. So like one was talking about how he wanted to get an alert if like a window was left open, right? So there's a little sensor in the window. It's connected to the Alexa. Alexa recognizes the sensor's not connected, and then he gets a text saying the sensor's not connected. Some really cool things. And I think that's only growing and becoming more neat. If you are in the Vancouver area, my understanding too is that the GF Strong is working on, I think it might be open now, sort of a little tech space where you can test out some things, including I think they've got some smart home technology there too. Because I think there's a lot of potential there to sort of build the home that you can grow old in, like that. Those sort of technology, especially when you have a chance to really get used to it and get comfortable with it, it can be a real game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a favorite of mine. And this is my exciting slide because this is me. So I'm not an engineer usually. I sit with all the engineers, but I'm on the product development team. So we're all about coming up with ideas, and a big chunk of my job was searching to make sure something doesn't exist, and then the other chunk is all about people, actually talking to folks who would use these kind of things, and getting their feedback and talking to them, and that's been really, really great. One of my favorite stories was with CanConnect. Recently we had a co-op student who presented to a group of seniors about some of the initial screenshots we got from CanConnect to get their feedback. And so she was computer sort of software focused, but it was actually getting to meet the seniors where she realized, like, you know what I'm really interested in is that I can talk to the people and that human connection, because when you get so interested in the app world, you're not really thinking about designing for people anymore. And it was seniors coming up and saying things like, well, nobody can read that text. And why are you putting gray on gray? No one can read that. And what does this button mean? All you've got is a picture. Put some text there so I know what it means. And it was, it was really cool. So that's a lot of what we do. And so this slide is my what's coming up next. And this is one that we're working on right now, like trying to see if we can agree whether or not we're going to do this before Christmas. This is CanConnect, or CanPlan. We name a lot of things with Can. CanPlan was originally made for a client with a acquired brain injury. So he was having trouble with task sequencing, so doing things in the correct order. And this app creates the space for you to take a picture of, make coffee with the title, make coffee. And every morning at 9 o'clock it's going to tell them to make coffee, which is fine. 100 other apps do that. But where ours comes in, where it's different, is that you can then start the task, and it will guide you step by step through each part. So the picture there says, fill coffee pot with cold water. And these would be actual pictures of his kitchen, actual pictures of his coffee maker that you would go through with a caregiver and set these things up. So then he would be able to sort of follow these steps. And again, apps are great because we can just make them available for free. And so CanPlan is out there available. Again, it's only on iDevices, but we're talking about seeing if we can redo it with a bit more of a focus on dementia and bringing it to seniors and really getting to redevelop it for a broader group. So in this case, we're thinking about, like, what ways could we make it better? Would caregivers want an alert when something gets done? Would you want to see that same, the case that goes around the CanConnect device for video calling? It hides all the other buttons, so it actually is an iPad, but it's so beautifully hidden by the case that you can't accidentally volume it off or turn it off or go to the home. It's meant to be simple. So could we do that same case for CanPlan so that people can follow it? What format makes it easier? What things can we change? That one you can put in videos, you can record your own voice, like is there more we can do with that? And so we actually have a survey out right now, and if you are a caregiver for somebody with dementia, or you have been, would love to have your response on that survey. I sent the link to Janet, and so we're actively looking for people to help us fill out the survey so that we know exactly where we're going with this, I mean, talking to seniors, you realize that a lot of products are not designed for seniors, and they never were. Nobody ever talked to them. But particularly when you're working on solutions for a specific group, the game changer is actually getting to speak to the people. So this is our big chance to connect with folks who are connected to the dementia community and hear what they have to say and really give the feedback, including if you're not a tech kind of person. I would really even more appreciate your feedback because then you're bringing in a more realistic presentation, right? People who are not actually that interested in technology. They're just in the situation they are because, you know, you are a caregiver now and you were never into technology, but now you have a chance that maybe this could be useful. But
so would this involve answering the survey or actually testing the equipment?
At this point, it would be a survey.
Yeah.
If the results of the survey point to something really unique and innovative, then we would develop it and possibly move towards developing it as both an app and probably as a device, so that we would be interested in testing it to see how it works, you know, if it's feasible to have somebody follow the steps, if it makes it easy. The current one has got plenty of downloads, but it is definitely focused on brain injury. That's brain injury. It's made huge waves there, and so we don't want to assume it's the same for somebody with dementia.
Right.
Maureen, I'm seeing to remember that many caregivers are seniors.
Right, so she's saying they could be intimidated by technologies. And
so true.
Yeah.
So true. In fact, that was part of why we went to seniors for CanConnect, was not that we think they would be the user, but we think that they would probably be setting it up for somebody else. So we really want to enter at that level. And one part of CanAssist that I haven't talked about at all, which is basically a third of our staff, is the Teen Work Job Program. So they actually totally different group. They work with youth. They help pair youth with disabilities with employers. So they coach them on the right skills. They help them find an employer. They make real money for their work, so they're not subsidized. And they have about a 92% success rate at placing youth with employers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so is there an equipment side to that too?
In theory, they can help them with setting up something like CanPlan. We had the job coaches check our survey several times to get the feedback because they don't do technology. Right. And we were using tech words like that are intimidating. And so that was really good to get that feedback. So I think the point we're at with our survey is a lot more understandable than where we had started.
Always hard.
But at least there's a lot of boxes for you to fill in saying, like, you've lost me here.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm thinking, you know, those sort of things. So definitely want to talk. And if you don't feel like the survey is a good format, but you still want to help and you want to talk, I would definitely pick up the phone to talk to a caregiver. We love talking to caregivers. Awesome. Even if you just would like to get involved, you can still shoot me an email, and I would be happy to connect.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's where we are with CanPlan.
Sounds very exciting.
So this is how you can be involved. So Ability 411, that's your resource that you can access. Again, interesting because you can see the answers to other questions. So it's neat as the new questions come in. I sent out the resource to a whole bunch of different people, including a woman who is a cane user. And when she went to the website, one of the newest questions was for cane users, and it was, is there a device that can sort of hold my cane while I'm sitting down? Because too often the cane falls down.
Yeah, it goes flying.
Really common. Right. And actually there's some really innovative solutions. My favorite one is it's essentially like a giant pipe cleaner, but with foam. And you would just wrap it, and then you could sort of shape it for whatever you wanted to hang it on.
Wow.
So that there are some that are more like a stable solution, so it would hang like one of those little birds that you can put on your finger.
Oh, yeah,
Like it's got a balance component.
Yeah.
But I really liked the foam one because I was thinking like all the different chairs. Like you're probably sitting on a cushy chair, then you're sitting on a kitchen chair. Not all your chairs are going to have armrests.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she saw that article and was like, oh my gosh, I'm a cane user, and I didn't even know. This is really cool. So the other cool thing is there are things that are condition specific as well. So you can search up. There's a lot of cool things under stroke, arthritis,
Right.
Dementia. There's been lots of great things coming through there. And again, there's a wonderful BC focus too. So on the question page, you can look and actually say where you live and everything, and get that more local connection. And then my bullet point number 2 is help to connect those to user testers for CanStayHome Technologies. So being based at the university certainly has its benefits, but it's kind of well known that universities tend to be a bit of an academic bubble, and hard enough to integrate into Victoria, but certainly when we're faced with the wider BC audience, it ends up being a challenge as well. So the way the testing phase works, in case anybody's wondering why I keep talking about testing, testing would be where our engineers would actually come and bring you the technology, install it, explain it, and you can keep it for as long as it's useful. So even though there's probably a specific time period where we would be saying, hey, how are you using it, and do you like it, and what's wrong with it, and asking those kind of questions for research purposes, we would also be standing by to be your ideal tech support on any problems, because we want to keep things easy. And then, of course, if the technology is so useful to the person, we let them keep it at the end. And all our technologies are sort of considered on loan as long as they're useful. So people do bring technologies back to us. So again, that comes into play when someone's browsing the website and they think this is really cool and it would help me, submit a request form, because sometimes some of that technology comes back to us and we're looking for a new home for it. So definitely another great one. And so that's under Spread the Word. We're always accepting community requests. If testing goes through the same request form, really the request form is the beginning. Although I would say Ability 411, if you really are looking more at a purchasing solution, or I would start with Ability 411 generally. Ability 411 is unique to seniors, so the community request form is still the only thing we have for youth and adults. But Ability 411 adds in that extra layer of CAOT. They don't work with us on the community request, so getting their perspective is definitely a key value with Ability 411. And then that last bullet point I have is to share your experiences with our product development team, because that's me, and we're desperately looking for caregivers at any point.
Right. Awesome.
Yes. So I think the next slide is my email and my contact information if anyone's interested. And then I was going to quickly do a run-through of the Ability 411.
Yep, just stick with us here. So make a note of Nikki's email address, CanAssistProDev@uvic.ca. Here's her phone number. And as I said, I'll make a PDF of this presentation, and it will be posted with the webinar recording. So let's hop on the website. Let's see what we can show everybody. Share my screen. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I'd also be happy to see feedback on the website if everyone's finding that easy. Okay, great. So on the main page, we can see the recently answered questions, and there's my one on wine openers.
Oh, there we are.
Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
Answered on November 20th. Under that, we had computer use with tremors. So this was asked Parkinson's community, you know, how easy it is to type or use a mouse when you have tremors. And again, some really cool solutions out there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's worth checking out if you support somebody with Parkinson's and they want to get on the computer, for sure. And then that last one on bathroom safety, that is probably the third in a series of just bathroom safety pieces.
So if someone clicks on this, they'll go to that.
They're going to see that.
Okay, there's the
and
question
they're basically going to see how
here.
we answered it.
Okay.
We remove a lot of the more specific things, so nothing that could identify who asked the question or where they're living, and then we jump into a whole bunch of different solutions. So for this one, we've got some bath mats where you can buy them.
Right.
And that was again from CAOT. We're looking for ones that are really serious about the non-flip component. Specific rugs. Oh, yes, and then there was the transfer bench.
Non-flip
so
stools.
generally they start with the most complicated and then move down to the more simple, including getting into some grab bars at the end. And it even references another Ability 411 article where we listed even more things.
Right.
Yeah, so again, bathroom safety, a big
huge.
theme.
Yes, just
And
huge.
yeah, so if you see on the side, you get, well, actually, if you go up to Browse Topics, we've tried to categorize them fairly well. Every now and then a question comes that doesn't fall into a category, and it's hard. They'll still be up there. The majority of our traffic to the site comes from somebody who's Googling this exact problem and then landing on the exact page they're looking for.
Right.
So just a range of things, including stuff for hobbies, which I think is, again, gets overlooked. If somebody, one of the great ones that's on there for hobbies is under photography. And just looking for a way that they can continue that hobby when they're facing challenges associated with aging. Memory and planning there's some really great tools for coordinating family caregivers, where you've got a network of people caring for one person who need to communicate with each other. The memory and planning, I find this section to be really interesting. So like there's one on there about the automatic stove shut-off. Oh, this language translation one came in recently, and that was for facilitating communication at an assisted living facility where half the people spoke Cantonese, and they wanted to be able to talk to the other half who spoke English. So definitely some interesting things. And these come from regular people. On the side where it says featured categories, you've got like sub things in there. So it's memory aid, monitoring, caregiver supports is another theme. And so you can sort of also, what I find is useful is if you click one of, like any of the question and answers, you get the tags on the side. So if you're looking at something that's relative to stroke, you can click the stroke tag and see a whole bunch of other things that are going to be relevant. But I guess one of the key parts here is that we've got the Ask a Question button at the top, which I think a lot of people don't realize just how easy it is. So you're meant to receive a response within 2 to 3 business days. You can check any of these on what it happens to be. Sometimes people check many of them. And then you get a chance to put in the question you want to ask. And sometimes it really is more of a statement of a specific challenge and just wondering, is there something out there? Now, all our questions are meant to be related to technology, but of course, when you have this kind of open service, sometimes we get people saying, it's related to technology because I'm looking for funding for my electric scooter. And I'm like, it's funding. And we do have a sort of set of template answers where we can try and direct people to resources. It's not the main function, but we're prepared for when that happens. And then you get to say whether or not who the information is actually for.
Right.
And then the last part is really trying to keep it quite simple, asking you for your name, your email, so we can get back to you. And then there's the location. So depending on where you are in BC, and again, if anybody's visiting from a smaller area and your location is not listed on there, pick the nearest one and then tell us in the question that your area wasn't on that list, because we want to put it on that list.
Right.
And then when you submit, it creates an account. So when your response does come back, it also gets emailed to you.
Okay.
The key thing with Ability 411, which is partly its biggest weakness, is that it is a website and not a phone number.
Right.
And of course, the group we're going to is not necessarily internet users. So we're asking a lot of different groups to sort of use this on somebody's behalf. So community associations, libraries, home support workers. If you can ask a question on somebody else's behalf, print them the response. It's going to make a difference. If you've got somebody who's been sort of nagging you about the same challenge for a really long time, like I keep, cutting this cucumber and I keep nicking the end of my finger, something like that. And if we can say, oh, look at, a couple options here, or, the jar that you always have to go over and open for somebody. Little things, but also some of the wider ones, if you're a lot of people who contact who are new, like a recent diagnosis or somebody coming home from hospital where they're looking for something like, I'm desperate to find a game-changing solution here.
Mm-hmm.
Those questions come in too.
Right.
So I'd really encourage you to sort of reflect on any of the challenges and really ask yourself if there's something that you feel could be out there to help support you. I mean, there's even, everything exists as an app. It's really cool.
So maybe for people who aren't quite sure what they're looking for, if they describe the situation that they're up against, that might be the way to ask the question.
Yeah, sometimes that's
I
all it
am
needs.
trying to do this.
I'm trying to do this. Is there something that makes it easier?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, too, that the upside, too, is if you're asking a question and you're like, I know there's nothing out there. I know it. I've looked. I don't believe it. If there is nothing out there, you've just told the right people.
Yeah.
Because it's Ability 411, which is through CanAssist, which means that information comes back to us and we can say, wow, that doesn't exist and people have asked for it. Like,
maybe we should
look at that.
Right.
And then also, if you don't get, if we can't find anything and CAOT can't find anything, the response also does redirect to our community request form. So
if we were to put in here, because you mentioned you can also search by condition. Excellent.
Great.
That's great. Well, and Nikki, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a fabulous webinar. I'm glad all of you stayed with us for this time.
Especially those in other time zones.
Yeah, and please tell others about it. It will be probably up on our website within a week, the recording. So it will live on. And yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki.
That's great.
Yep, people just saying thanks. Thanks to all of you for